Okay. Hi, welcome. Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Azuma. I'm going to be presenting an important topic called back to school. But before I do that, let me add my slide. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good afternoon to some of you. I am the host, Dr. Azuma, and today you're welcome to our platform called Love Your Menses and Your Health. And it's called A Conversation with Sister Docs. I'm launching this or relaunching this. This is part of Love Your Menses. Today's topic is a back to school guide for parents. We're going to be talking about briefly about resilience, mental wellness, and anti bullying. But before that, I would love to introduce my guest speaker, Dr. Luguterah. And let me read her background. Dr. Luguterah is a licensed social worker and adjunct faculty of behavioral science at the University of Maryland Global Campus. She has in-depth experience providing psychotherapy and creating treatment plans for both children and adults. She has over 18 years experience. She has served as the director for various Montessori schools in Maryland. In that capacity, she spearheaded the development of a robust educational program addressing the unique needs of children. Dr. Luguterah is the author of two children's books, namely The Red Purse and A Thankful Christmas. These books are currently available on Amazon. Please support her. In her spare time, she enjoys good music, researching interesting topics, and taking nature walks. As a social worker and educator, her goal is to provide her students and clients with the education and tools needed to improve their overall physical, social, and emotional outcome. I have heard Dr. Luguterah speak multiple times. It's always a pleasure, and I feel honored to have her here today. Please join me in welcoming her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So this platform is going to be a platform that will be done monthly. You guys might have known my other platform called Healthy and Uplifted. You can find more information about us on our YouTube channel. At this time, we're emerging two organizations, Love Your Menses and Healthy and Uplifted, to provide this robust conversation. I will now hand this over to Dr. Luguterah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's always an honor to have the opportunity to share my knowledge and to just impact as many people as possible. So thank you for having me. I'm going to quickly go through my slides to discuss this all-important topic of back to school. Back to school links back to so many things. It's not just about kids going to school. It's also about the preparedness of us as parents and guardians, how we support the wellness of the children throughout the school year, and how we'll be able to manage the challenges that come with a school year. So back to school year, back to school is important for not just children, but for us adults. It also means back to basics for us as parents. So the next slide. There is a slide on one of the things I like to do is called self-reflection, right? So for all of us, we have been to school. We know what it means to go back to school. So I want us to just, in a 30-second, just reflect back on your experience. What did it mean for you each time you had to go back to school? Was it an exciting time? Was it scary? Was it an anxious time? How prepared were you? How prepared do you think that your parents were or your guardians were? What were some of the challenges you experienced? How were you supported? And what kind of support would you have loved that you were not able to get at that time? So now that you are an adult, you want to think back to your experience, because that way you know how best to support the younger ones now and how to be able to be there to leverage whatever their needs are and to be able to push them in the right direction, right? So a school year always comes with multiple emotions. Some are excited, some are unsure. Some of us are going to a new school completely. For some, this is the first time ever going to school. And for others, it's a new grade with the challenge to make new friends, maybe a new school, and also new responsibilities or more work to be done. Next slide. So it's important to really take the time to think about it. When I was doing this presentation, an anchor scripture came to me, 3 John chapter 2. And for those who ascribe to the Christian faith, it is important for us to remember that being well and being settled is an important part of our Christian journey. So that in addition to our prayers and our spiritual growth, our overall wellness, our social, our emotional wellness is equally relevant or essential to our Maker. So he charges us and says he wishes that we will all be in good health and prosper, even as our soul prospers. So that means that when we're doing all these things, we also need to focus or put a limelight on our soul, our emotions, and how well we're doing. And there's a process for that. Being well for ourselves and our children, it doesn't just happen. There's a process that we go through. But it's important to note that it is God's desire for us to be well, for our homes to be well, for our children to be well, for everyone to be well emotionally. Next slide. So I like to go back to the basics. So who exactly is a parent? Because when you're talking about back to school, the children don't go by themselves, right? The parents are involved, the guardians are involved. So who exactly is a parent? And for a lot of us, we're thinking more about a biological parent. You birthed someone, so that makes you a parent. That's only one way. And as a matter of fact, the fact that you birthed someone doesn't necessarily mean that you are a parent, because anyone can birth a child. And a lot of people can birth children, but may not necessarily be parents in terms of application. So when you are a parent, it means that you not only birthed a child, but you have oversight. You are providing support. You are nurturing your child. You're being there for your child every step of the way. So you are providing a lot of oversight. You're nurturing them. You are making sure that they have the resilience they need. You're building them up every day. You're being very intentional in all the things that you're doing with your children, because you want them to be well emotionally. You want them to be heard. You want them to be strong. You want them to be resilient, and you want to push them in the right direction. So that is the definition of who a parent is. Next slide. And parenting connotes so many things. It's not always fun. There is fun to it. There is reward. There is pleasure. But it also involves some tiredness, some sacrifice, a lot of sacrifice, some patience, a lot of it. It comes with struggle sometimes. Sometimes you're tired depending on how many children you are, or the stages that you're in, or the responsibility that comes with having a child or multiple children that you are being intentional about. So there's a lot of emotions come to mind when we talk about the concept of parenting. So it's important that we take note of that. I also like to go through what we call parenting styles. And the reason I want to go through the 4 main parenting styles is because research and the literature we have now is able to link wellness of children and even adults and their homes, is able to establish a link between parenting styles and overall wellness of our children. And sometimes when we are from different cultures, we might be used to parenting a certain way because that's what we know, but it's important to have an understanding behind the type of parenting style you choose and the implications on your home in terms of wellness. So there are 4 main types. There's an authoritarian parenting style. Authoritarian, simply in a summary, means a parenting style where it's more of a dictatorship, right? So the parent says something, the parent sets the rules. The child at home doesn't necessarily have any input. Is my way or the highway. So it's more of a dictatorship kind of relationship. One person speaks and everybody has to listen. There is no oversight. There's no negotiation. There's no consideration of anything. It's an authoritarian type of leadership or parenting style. So you do everything, you say everything. Your child doesn't feel safe or doesn't have a space necessarily to dialogue with you, regardless of their age, regardless of their skills, regardless of their contribution or their intelligence. You are in charge and it's always about you. For that kind of parenting style, what we see is children who tend to have a lot more anxiety, or children who tend to be unsure of themselves, because in their home setting, which is the base for every human being, your home is your base. And so when you don't feel like you can contribute, or you don't know how to contribute, or maybe when you make a mistake and you're being corrected, it's done in a harsh way, and you feel nervous, you feel unsure, you feel unsafe, all those emotions, right, can develop into some form of wellness. That plays a huge role in how well you are. Because if you don't have the time or the opportunity to develop a safe, will I say, coping skill, or be able to communicate or to feel safe in your home, you're going to be anxious, depressed, and that is where low self-esteem and all those things come up. So children that are more used to or are brought up in an authoritarian lifestyle or an authoritarian parenting style tend to be at a higher risk for all these things I talked about. The next parenting style is what we call the permissive parenting style. So permissive means that, a parent might set the rule, but they don't necessarily follow it. A child can run the home. So it's almost like the extreme end of authoritarian. Permissive is more, you can say maybe sleep time or curfew is 8 o'clock. Your child comes home at 10 and it's not a problem. Like, okay, that's fine, right? So you're very lax. That can let your child be confused. They might struggle with following through with authority figures, because if they find themselves in an environment where they're expected to do certain things at a certain time, if they've not been exposed to that, if they've not had the opportunity to thrive under settings where there are deadlines and there are boundaries and there are explanations for those things, then it becomes a challenge, right? They're more prone to break rules. They're more prone to want to have their own way. They're more prone to being upset and being angry when you try to structure them. So this parenting style is known to have more negative outcomes when pertaining to our children. The next one is uninvolved. Uninvolved is almost like, think of it more of parental neglect, right? So in this situation, yes, you might feed your child, you might clothe your child, you might house them, but that's about it. Beyond that, you're not emotionally available, you're not there to guide them, you're not there to show them what to do. So these are children who also are more prone to abuse, because you don't have oversight over them. You're providing for them in terms of housing, clothing, but you're not emotionally available. There are also negative consequences for that. These are children that tend to have lower resilience, right? Because they've not really been there. They've not learned a lot of things. They're not well knowledgeable in certain important tasks, things they have to do at a certain time, because they don't necessarily have that parental guidance. And so they're more at risk for not knowing a lot of things and picking up a lot of bad behaviors, because you have an uninvolved parenting style, and basically they have to raise themselves. So that's what the uninvolved parenting style connotes to. The final style, parenting style, is what we call authoritative. In the authoritative parenting style, you are still a parent, but you recognize that your child is human. And so you know when to respect your child, you know when to stop and to listen to them. They have a say, they can communicate with you, you can have discussions with them. You're still there to guide, to redirect, but your child feels safe, because when they misunderstand something or disagree, they're not afraid to come to you to have a conversation, a healthy conversation, one that is based out of love, one that is based out of redirection. You are still the parent, you're still in control, you're still in charge, but your child feels a part of the home. They're not just an accessory. They can contribute. They can feel safe. As they get older, they can have an input, right? They can say, maybe I prefer color yellow instead of color blue, or maybe, can I please help with this chore? Or can I do this, right? An authoritative parent also is very cognizant of the different stages of development of the child. So you know when your child is capable of doing chores, and you assign them chores to do, because you recognize that it is part of healthy development. You want to instill responsibility in them, and in so doing, you're building resilience. Whenever a child or anyone feels at home or feels loved or feels accepted, all those things contribute towards their overall wellness, because they have a safe space, because they can ask questions, they can learn, they can grow, they can thrive. They see you lead by example. So you're modeling that. You're modeling patience. You're modeling, when you're upset, you're modeling the kind of appropriate response to being upset. So you're guiding them along the right path, and they can build themselves gradually, daily, step by step, because they are in an environment that is supportive and that is positive, right? And they still feel a part of it. They don't feel lost. So research shows us that children that are raised under such parenting styles tend to have higher positive outcomes. They have a higher self-esteem, because at home they can speak, they can communicate, they can be corrected, They know they are loved. They know the parents will show up for them. They know that even when they are corrected, they understand that it is done out of love. And because they have that strong base, they can build a better resilience. A parent who is authoritative also at the beginning of the school year would set expectations for the child, realistic expectations, right? So back to school also means back to basics and back to setting of expectations. So maybe last school year you had expectations for your child. This time they're going a grade higher or a new school. You have very set realistic expectations. Your child knows what they are. You know what they are. And you also communicate those expectations to your child's teachers. If they are new or even if they're old teachers, you want them to know what the new expectation is. So that way your child, yourself, and the school are on the same page. And there's some kind of monitoring or oversight, which is also helpful for your child. Right. So those are important concepts when it comes to wellness, or building resilience. It doesn't take one day. It's not one thing we do. It's little things we do every day consistently through our parenting styles, through the opportunities that we give to our children, right? So for instance, if your child goes to school and they're feeling upset or they're feeling nervous, if you do have an authoritative parenting style, your child is going to have the strength and the courage to come to you to express to you the challenges that they're having at school. Or as a parent, because you have an authoritative parenting style, you would go to your child, you find a time to communicate with them and to have quality time and to find out how their day was. And then that opens up the opportunity for a conversation. Right? You don't take things for granted. You recognize that these are interesting times or challenging times for everyone, and you want to be there for your child or for the person you have oversight over, step by step, leading them, understanding that this is the way to go, and you are there to offer support. So you want to look back to say the previous school year, what did we not do right? Right? I know that was for a lot of us, maybe our children have to take the bus to school, which is awesome. But once in a while, if you're an authoritative parent, you can surprise a child and just show up and pick them up or drop them off in school. Surprises, right, throughout the school year, consistently surprising our children in a good way, right? In a way that you know that they would appreciate, because you understand your child's love language. Everyone, not just an adult, but even children also have their love language. And so when we are interacting with them, a lot of us would understand the love language of adults, but it's important to know that children also have a love language. And so when you know that love language and you recognize that every child is unique in their own way, you want to cater everything you do in that direction and be there for them and surprise them. And doing that makes the child recognize that they are important. You're not just something that happens, you're not just a routine, but you are there for them when there's a PTA or when there's something that needs to be accomplished. You show up and you're there to support your child in the right way. And when you need to correct them, you're also correcting them in the right way. When a child has that assurance or that basis, these are the children who are more likely to stand up to people when they try to bully them. These are children that are more likely to ask questions, right? They're not just going to take anything. They're going to tell you a lot more than the average person would, because they have found a safe base in you. And sometimes we also feel that maybe depending on our cultural background, we might seem as though yelling at our child or speaking to them in a condescending way would get the job done. But not really, right? In these times and in this generation, having a relationship that is based out of love is very, very important. And being intentional about developing or crafting that relationship, not just saying, I'm your mom, I'm your dad, you must listen to me. Those things don't really work out well these days. But being intentional, going through the process with your child, understanding what is important, what is relevant, and how best to support them. There is a principle called imprinting, right? And it's a very important one, because it means that whatever our children see over and over and over again, it becomes part of their psyche. It becomes part of who they are. It becomes part of their emotions, their thought process. And we know that our thought process controls our behavior. So if your thought process tells you that you are loved, you are accepted, that determines how you behave. But if you find yourself in an environment that constantly reminds you that maybe you're not needed here, or your voice is not needed, or you don't have the support that you need as a child, then that also impacts your behavior. You will try to find that comfort in another group. So be it a gang, be it friends in school, whether they're positive or not, because every human being has that innate desire to want to belong to something or to someone. It's a craving, it's a desire that is placed in every single one of us. And when we can't find it in the right places, we'll go anywhere we can to find it because that need still exists. But when we understand the parenting styles and recognize which one is thought to be the optimal one or the best one, the best practice, then we'll gravitate more towards being an authoritative parent, right? You're still the parent, you're still in charge, but you recognize that your child is a full human with emotions, and you do want to give them the space and the time to be able to communicate, and you do want to make them a priority. So this is the link between parenting, wellness, and human imprinting. Our children always listen with their eyes, not their ears. It's very important for us to recognize, right? So when we are speaking, they're not necessarily hearing you. I mean, they're hearing you, but that is not as important as what they see, right? So they listen, right? Or they listen through, they're watching through their eyes. They listen and they're watching through their eyes, right? That's what is important to them. They don't listen with their ears per se. You're watching. Observation, right? Observation is very crucial in a young child's life. So when we are leading them step by step, what they see us do, they're more likely to replicate that. What they see us do consciously or unconsciously, they're more likely to make it a part of their life. So if we understand imprinting, then all around us, we want to create positive opportunities for our children to be well. So we will be patient with them because we will display patience ourselves when we're getting frustrated. We will be kind to them because we want our children to be kind. We will speak up when someone says something against our children. We'll let them know that we support them. So that way, they are used to people defending them. So when they go to school and they're being bullied, they know that this is not okay. This is not what I should be exposed to. This is not acceptable. They can defend themselves, or they can talk to a teacher, or they can come home and communicate with you because you already have that important relationship. And I'm going to quickly wrap up on this important part when it comes to considerations for wellness and for our children. So I'm going to go in a random way and just get through some of them. We should take time, spend quality time with the children. A new school year comes with challenges, like I said earlier. Figure out with your child, are they anxious? If you're anxious, how can you calm them down? Are they struggling with their work as the year progresses? Keep an eye out for your child to see if they're struggling academically. If they are struggling academically, right? Because if a child is struggling academically, that impacts their self-confidence and self-esteem right away. Right? So if they are struggling academically, yes, it's good to pray for them. But it's also important to recognize that my child needs extra tutoring, because that extra tutoring will be helpful for them and will make them feel better about themselves. The reverse is also true. Maybe the previous year they needed extra support. Find out if they still need that kind of support. Do they need it? Do you need to decrease it? Do you need to increase it? What do we need to do? Because we have to be very intentional about our children and them being well and them feeling sure about themselves every step of the way. Do we spend quality time with them? Time, real time. Is there family time? Is that dinner time? It may not be possible to have family time every day, but it's important to be intentional about setting a time that says, this is our time. This is family time. This is what we want to do. This is how we get together. And this is how we work things through. It's amazing the information children can give you when you just sit down and spend time with them. And when they feel that you have a listening ear, that makes a lot of difference for them in their interactions and in all that they have to do. When they're struggling emotionally, does your child need a therapist? Do you think it's to the point where they need a therapist? If they do, find one. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Get them the help they need. Does your child need a special assessment, right? If your child attends public school in Maryland, by virtue of being in public school, they can get different kinds of support services, right? If they have an IEP or individualized education program, if that's where your child is and they need that support, the public school has to provide that because they take funding from the state. and from federal sometimes. And so they need to be able to, they're required actually to provide extra services for children that need it. And it's free because you're in a public school setting, and they recognize that under the ADA Act or Americans with Disability Act, there is a component when it comes to learning. And there is a provision made for children that need extra support to have that necessary support. So are you able to spend time with your children? Are you able to take a break with them? Is everything always serious? Or do you have time to just relax and figure out how to spend time with your children, what their talents are, what their strengths are, and to be able to push them in the right direction when it comes to these things? All of these considerations are very, very essential if we want to continue to maintain wellness in our children, to build wellness, to build resilience, and to push them in the right direction where they can triumph, they can be strong, and they can feel confident throughout the school year, not just at the beginning, right? The beginning of the school year, they might have new clothes, new stationery, and all of that. But as the year progresses, there's more work, there's more challenges, more friends, more assignments, and it's important to track their wellness every time. So in addition to asking our children, what did you learn today? What did you learn this week? Another important question to ask is, how well are you? How are you feeling? Are you happy? Tell me about your day. What can be done differently? What are you struggling with? What do you need help with? Do you have friends? Ask all those important questions, and do also take the time to check in with the child's teacher. As an educator, I can tell you that when we have parents who are, I would like to say, interested in the academic and also social wellness of their child, we tend to pay more attention to those set of children, because we know that their parents have specific expectations and their parents are rooting for them. So we are also more intentional because we recognize that this is important to the parents. So if you've not yet had a chance to introduce yourself to your child's teacher, I encourage you to send an email introducing yourself and thanking them for being able, or being relevant, being available to work with your child. It's not easy teaching in the school systems these days. So when you have a teacher, it's a huge blessing to have one. And to introduce yourself and to see if there are any ways you can be of support to them, during the school year. They can reach out to you at any time. You don't want to be a parent who only reaches out to a teacher when there's a problem. You want to be a parent who reaches out, who is proactive about reaching out and being there to support the entire class as needed. When your child sees that, they also learn kindness, they learn forgiveness, they learn sacrifice, they learn all these important things because they know that you are pushing them in the direction of wellness. You've imprinted positive practices in them, and that will be a strong support for them throughout the school year. So I encourage us all to be intentional. When we are intentional and we take the time to build relationships with our children and to respect and to show them those positive ways of doing things, it goes a long way. Your home environment has to be stable, has to be peaceful. I encourage you that you create an environment, a home base that is peaceful, and that enables your child to thrive, even as you parent them in the authoritative mindset. That goes a long way with wellness and with securing them throughout the school year, which is very, very important. So I would say that is in summary my presentation for tonight, and what I would encourage everyone to do consistently throughout the school year.
Wow, Dr. Luguterah, thank you so much for that excellent presentation. I've heard you speak, and each time you speak, I take notes. Look at this, I've been taking notes. You've empowered me to do things differently as a single parent. Single parents can do it as well. Thank you so much for reminding me to make time, creating a family time, which is very important. Thank you again for also reminding me to reintroduce myself to my daughter's teacher. I did go to the orientation and I met her teacher, but thank you for reminding me. That's a to-do list. I appreciate you. Thank you for defining different parenting styles. As a coach myself, I don't think people should ascribe to just one parenting style, because sometimes they're it is important to display a parenting style. For example, if your child is about to cross the road and there's a bus coming, you don't debate. You say, "Can you come back? There's a bus right there." So there are different situations where each parenting style might be necessary. What are your thoughts to that?
So I didn't hear everything you said, so I'm not sure if it's my audio I'm trying to see,
Okay.
but I missed part of what you said. I can't hear
I
you
can
too well.
rephrase it, and I'll rephrase it by sharing the parenting style so that it's more conversational. One second. All right, that is true. Okay, so you talked about. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Oh, Dr. Luguterah just left, but she'll be coming back. Dr. Luguterah talked about 4 different parenting styles. She talked about the authoritarian, the permissive, the uninvolved. Okay, you're back.
Yeah. Yes.
I'll repeat that. Can you hear me now, Doc?
Yes, I can hear you. Much
Okay.
better.
Thank you so much for explaining and providing us these 4 main parenting styles: the authoritarian, the permissive, uninvolved, and the authoritative. I
Yes.
said, as a coach, I would suggest that there's a dominant parenting style that could be helpful, right? You
Yes.
talked about authoritative, but I feel like sometimes parents should have each trait or
Mm-hmm.
different parenting
Mm-hmm.
styles depending on
Mm-hmm.
the situation.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm more permissive when I say, "Child, do you want to watch this? Whatever,
Yes.
you know, that is decent, that is
Mm-hmm.
appropriate, she can watch. I don't need to
Yeah.
say you're going to watch Mickey Mouse right now." So
Mm-hmm.
that so sometimes it's important to adopt different parenting styles based
Mm-hmm.
on the situation. My question is, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with that? I say that because the different personality styles, right? And
Mm-hmm.
some people are type A, some people are type B. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I identified my personality type, it was
Mm-hmm.
difficult for me to switch out because I felt like I was ascribed to it until I freed myself that, you know what, sometimes you could be a type B depending on the situation. Sometimes you
Right.
could be a leader, sometimes you could be a follower. Is that the
Mm-hmm.
same take in parenting, that sometimes we could be authoritative, sometimes we could be permissive, sometimes we could be authoritarian, or do we have to stick with the authoritative one that you suggest? Thank you.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And when you read more about the authoritative parenting style, you will find in there that authoritative is more of, well, I'd say, where the parent continues to have oversight. As a parent, you never want to lose oversight of your child because children are children; they need a lot of direction. But within that authoritative parenting style, I remember I said, looking at your child's age and their abilities, you are in that parenting style that you recognize the contributions of your child and they have a say, they have an input, depending on their age, right? And also depending on the situation. So you can still be authoritative. In fact, if you're authoritative, it means that you're open to the concept that sometimes your child's input would override yours. Not every time, right?
Okay.
So depending on what it is, what the situation is, you would listen, because authoritative parenting style means that you engage with your child and they are important. You see them as a contributor, not just a passive person, right? An active contributor, active participant. So yes, there are certain cases where you say, yeah, you can have this food, you can choose yellow instead of blue, you can do this, you can watch a movie now, you can do this now, you can all those things. But then when it comes to other cases, you say, you know what? This is what we're doing because this is this, right? So when it's time to go to school, you're not going to negotiate to say, if they're supposed to be in school at 8 o'clock, you're not going to say, well, you can go at 9, right? You're not going to intentionally do that. You're going to create an environment where your child understands that these are the expectations. There are certain things that are non-negotiables, and this is one of them. But there are other things that we can talk about and we can negotiate. So you're still being authoritative, even in those moments, because you are still the parent. You never lose your role as a parent. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
Yes, yes, it really does. Thank
Mhm.
you also how you talked about how authoritative style of parenting breeds children that are resilient, breeds children that can stand up to bullies, breeds children that can report or tell their parents what's going on. Because as
Yeah.
we've seen, bullying exists in school.
Yeah.
It's really sad. I remember when I experienced bullying through my daughter when she was in kindergarten. It was pretty upsetting to me for a girl that was about 6 years old saying mean things to my child, but it made me learn to teach her how to speak. Even though it crushes my heart that someone would be mean to her, it's just part of
Mhm.
life, right? As a parent that deals with authoritative style, I was able to say, I know it hurts, but this is life. Not everyone is nice. You cannot go through life thinking
Right.
everyone should be nice, because that's not how it is.
Correct.
All right, Dr.
Yeah.
Luguterah, it's such a pleasure coming. I'm having you on our show, especially the first webinar for the year. The year we're starting is August to August. So we're very, very grateful. Thank you for agreeing to come back in January to help us start the year strong. You're just amazing. I'm so glad that you're my friend, my sister, and someone I can call on when I need help. So now I'm going to hand it over. Thank you again, Dr. Luguterah. I'm going to hand it over to Fonshu. Fonshu, are you available?
Okay, yes.
Okay, Fonshu. Hey, Fonshu, introduce yourself, who you
Oh,
are to our team, and how you will be helping me coordinate this and whatnot. You can introduce yourself.
my name is Funshaw Oreni. I'm a Love Your Menses Fellow, Menstrual Equity Fellow, and I would also be helping to coordinate this um, this platform where we are going to have like Sister Docs coming and talking to us about different aspects of our lives and things that we think that should be talked about. So now I guess I'm gonna talk about some COVID stuff. I'm not sure I know how to share my screen, or should
Oh,
I just read off?
let me see if I can if you could I think you can, if you click on the present, the one with the cross screen in the bottom banner, it allows you to share. um you
Okay.
might you should have access. If you don't, next time I'll make sure I add you as one of the
Yeah,
coordinator. Can you do it or no?
I can't, and I'm not sure if it's because I'm on my iPad, but I can't. So
Okay.
I'm just gonna
You-
read off of the. I went to WHO and
okay.
they have a weekly epidemiology updates,
Okay.
and the last week, no, not really last week. In the last 28 days, so that's
We
24.
can't see you, Fonshu. We can't see
Oh,
you.
that's because I was reading off the thing.
Okay.
I clicked on
Um,
a different page later, Dad. Okay, let me see if I can read off a different screen.
No problem. Again, I put Fonshu on the spot. Fonshu is a medical student and she's interested in women's health. So she decided to join Love Your Menses as our global maternal and child health fellow. So we appreciate her. She's amazing. She's very intelligent. And we're excited to have a future OBGYN if she goes that route.
Okay, I okay. I'm just I'm just gonna keep reading off here.
No problem. No
So
problem.
in the last 28 days period, um, last 28-day period, nearly 1.5 million new cases of COVID has been found, and over 2,000 deaths has been reported by the WHO in 6 regions. So mostly just in the Americas, in Europe, Asia as well. And they're reporting an increase by 63% and a decrease of 48% respectively compared to previous 28 days, which is the month before. As of 20th, as of the 20th of August 2023, over 769 million confirmed cases and over 6.9 million deaths has been reported globally. The three regions reported increase in the number of cases are mostly the United States and East Mediterranean regions as well. The Americans is still seeing the start of the pandemic, and we still for sure hear about new strains and but new strains around. But at the end of the day, COVID is still very much rampant in the society, and a lot of countries too, as discontinue specific reporting of COVID. But a lot of countries still acknowledge that COVID is still very much an integral part of respiratory disease in the community. The WHO is an available source that everybody can reach out to get more about the monitoring of COVID-19 and the situations and the impacts around us. And the WHO urges members to maintain the COVID-19 infrastructures just to make sure that we get early warnings in case there's a spike or there's another pandemic coming up. So they're pretty much saying that we should continue to watch just to get an early warning, and in order to keep surveillance and also keep reporting so that they can keep tracking the various variants that's going on across the world, I guess. And they're also encouraging administrations of vaccine boosters, especially to high risk group communities. So that's people who have high blood pressure, who've had surgeries, who have autoimmune diseases as well. So these are people that should definitely be thinking about getting vaccine boosters as well. So I think that's all I have on my end.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for that wonderful update, especially putting you on the spot. Next month when we come back, we'll be more prepared. And I think the main gist here is COVID is real, and we should consider getting the vaccine. And those of us that have gotten the vaccine that are in high risk groups should consider getting the booster. Thank you so much, future Dr. Funshaw. Thank you again, Dr. Luguterah. Dr. Luguterah, I wish you could come all the time because you have a wealth of knowledge, but we understand that you can't. So we appreciate you. Thank you again. Thank you, viewers. Again, my name is Dr. Azuma. I'm the host and the moderator for this conversation, a back to school guide by Sista Docs. Again, the name of this platform is Love Your Menses and Your Health. I am your host. Until I see you again, thank you.